Good evening, race fans, and welcome back here to the CIL, the Collegiate iRacing League, here presented for you on Twitch and YouTube, as well as Facebook. Joining me up in the booth tonight is John Price, not with us, but with us in chat is Josh Crane. So you're going to hear me and John all night long. And John, what a fun track we've got in store tonight.
Yeah, Road Atlanta out here in Brazelton, Georgia. Fantastic track. A track that a lot of these guys have probably played on their PS2 or their Xbox growing up and now get to experience it in iRacing as well. A lot of elevation change, 12 turns across this track, and a spicy little track temp of 114 degrees. A little bit cooler than what these guys experienced in the practices. Some of the practices were north of 130 degrees, and guys were talking about tire wear dropping off pretty significantly. It's struggling with the tire warm-up as well on that first lap out of the pits, but a little bit nicer conditions for them than that, but still no slouch. Still going to be a big challenge for them, and the alumni wrapping up their qualifying right now, Jarrett, but I'm looking forward to this one for sure.
Oh, no doubt about that. And John just said the alumni wrapping up their qualifying. You're going to see alumni and students over the course of the night. The alumni signified by red windshield banners and the students signified by green windshield banners. So if you notice those over the course of the race, that's what we have going on here tonight. 2 weeks ago, we were at the Hockenheim Ring for a good one, and John, Sean Campbell has been running away with it all season long. Do we expect anything different here tonight at Road Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, his dominating performances have just been absolutely masterful. I mean, his strategy last week was really what won him the race. He was able to save so much fuel that he could pit a good 3 or 4 laps later than everybody else, and that's going to save him time at the pit stop, which is ultimately what enabled him to come out. I think it was 8 seconds ahead after the pit stops, and they were closing that gap up to that point, but he just had that strategy nailed. It's going to look kind of similar here. Not quite as many opportunities to save fuel. There's one big one down into turn 10 as you come down the hill and enter the braking zone for the chicane. But outside of that, not a lot of opportunities to save fuel. If anything, there's more opportunities to save tires around this course, which will also be a factor. If guys can, hesitate from pushing so hard throughout the race, they may have a little bit of extra grip in those last 5 to 10 laps. And that's going to help them to push and maybe collect those last couple of positions in the closing stages of the race. But in terms of the track itself, there are some tricky corners out there. Turn 1 is kind of tricky in some ways. Not too hard to get through the corner, but to get through it with speed and to carry the speed all the way to the apex is not easy to do. And then you got to get the car all the way back to the middle of the track and then over the left-hand side to prepare for turn 3, one of the tighter corners on the track. There's a lot of curb action there that you'll find. Guys are really launching the car over that section and try to carry in as much speed through that corner as they can, because then it's a long downhill run through turns 4 and 5 and the S's, and then all the way back to turn 6. And then onto turn 7, probably another pretty tricky corner. Got to get the car stopped pretty early on the brakes and turned in early so you can maximize that exit speed down that long back straight through turns 8 and 9, and then down towards the chicane turn 10, the second or the probably fourth most tricky part on the, or fourth consecutively tricky part on this track, for me at least. But students getting out there and qualifying right now. Alumni have wrapped up their qualifying session. Ted Burns taking the pole for the Wisconsin team in the alumni category, narrowly beating Avery Walker by a margin of just 0.027 seconds. So well done, that Wisconsin team on there. And Jeremy Rogers sitting in third in the alumni. Carl Emkold, Nick Daly, and then Rahobel and Ennie. Scott Ratliff 7th in the alumni. And then I think Derek Ekman has failed to set a lap in qualifying, so he will start 8th in the alumni category, but he'll start at the back of the pack overall, so he'll have a lot of cars that will have to make its way through here. So on board now with Thomas Toomey starting his lap, heading down here towards turn 1. Going to be hard on the brakes just after that concrete patch starts on the left. Hooks up with the apex. Doesn't quite get all the way out to the curbing on the left side. Doesn't need to, but then keeps it on the left-hand side. Sends it over that curb at turn 3 we just talked about, and takes a good amount of curb there on the exits. Tries to stay as planted in the throttle as he can. He's going to be on minimum fuel here for this run. All the way flat to here. Turn 5, hard on the brakes. Don't clip too much curb there on the inside, but then take every single inch of curb that you can get away with there on the exit. That's going to enable you to carry all that speed down here to turn 6. Hard on the brakes, that first white line. Get it turned in. Hook up with a lot of camber there at the apex, and then early brakes here. Get it turned in. Take a little bit of curb, and then gently squeeze that throttle. Don't get into the traction control on the exit there, because that's just going to hurt you as you follow all the way down this back straight, cresting over the hill there into turn 8 and turn 9. Not really corners at all. Easy flat for these cars for sure. Easy flat for pretty much any race car. But now it's going to be down into the braking zone, turn 10, the chicane, looking for that 100 board there on the right-hand side, taking advantage of the curb there on the right as well. Hooks up with the apex well, gently squeezes that throttle as he exits here. Now it's an 80-foot drop through turn 11 and now down to turn 12. Gets it swung in nice and tight, meets up with the apex, easy flat there, and lets it run out there to the edge as well. That's going to be his first lap on the board, a 19.883. Pretty decent lap, but I expect those times to come down pretty significantly, Jarrett. I'm expecting to see some guys maybe even breach the 18s here with this track temp.
Yeah, you said it as we were watching practice that 18s would be kind of that number to beat, and I think we'll see Toomey jump up into there in the second lap. You mentioned the tire warm-up phase. iRacing recently updating kind of how long that takes, and it's a tricky little track here. Road Atlanta dumps you right into the S's out of the pit exit, and on cold tires, that's a tough spot to maneuver, so pay attention to that, especially lap 1 and 2 during the race. And as guys come out of the pits, your tires have cooled down a little bit after getting reserviced, refueled, and that's going to be probably the area to watch here tonight, John.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were chatting about it before, and the situation with the tire warm-up here is a little bit unique compared to other tracks. Other tracks that don't have as much elevation change, it's not as big of an issue, but in here, like you said, the pit exit throws you right out there pretty much just past turn 1 going towards turn 3, and then you got a huge elevation change and a lot of curbs to contend with. And so as the car kind of crests there, the back end's going to get light, and the inexperienced driver might want to jump out of the throttle, but that's going to transfer weight to the front of the car and going to induce an oversteer moment. In the case when you've got cold tires coming out of the pits and you try to get on the throttle to shift the weight to the back of the car, those tires just don't want to hook up quite yet, and so you still have an oversteer moment. So no matter what you do, you just have to be as smooth as possible to keep the car in check, at least on those first few corners coming out of the pits, because it is treacherous. It was even trickier in the hotter practice sessions, so that was good practice for these guys to get used to that. These cool temperatures may help them a little bit as we watch Christian Gomez make his way through on turn 5 right there. You see the cars bouncing over the curbs there on the exit, him working hard at the wheel. Fast hands going on there. Like to see it as well. Getting it tucked in there into turn 6, using all the curb there on the exit as well. And there's a lot of speed there into turn 7. We'll see if he can get it stopped. It might have to delay his throttle action a little bit when you do that. That's why I call it a tricky corner, Jared, is because it's deceptive. You want to carry as much speed as you can in that apex, because you're going to think that's going to enable you to carry speed on the exit, but it's almost the opposite of that. If you get it stopped early and then turn late, it's going to give you a nice straight exit, and you can smash that throttle, knock it in the traction control, and have all that grip available to you to try to hustle that car down the back straight. So as he's cresting over turn 11, you'll see that back end get light as he crests the hill, and he's actually going to come into the pits and maybe get another gallon or 2 of fuel in that car and a fresh set of tires on it and give it another attempt. But Sean Campbell, Jarrett, we talked about it. He's going to be tough to beat today. Already into the 18s and 18.7 on the board. Christian Gomez, the closest driver at the moment, over 2/10 off of him. Both those drivers in the pit. So it's up to Sean Vellandi and Kyle Bonin at the moment to try to hook up a good lap.
And we talked about those 3 drivers, who's going to be able to contend with who. And during the practice, it looks like Thomas Toomey was going to take it to Sean Campbell all night long. We see right here Toomey waiting to put down that fast lap here tonight. Last time when we were out in the Hockenheim ring, Sean Campbell won. John mentioned an 8-second gap in front of the drivers in front. Thomas Toomey second, Christian Gomez third, Alexander Klenk fourth, and Kyle Bonin finishing 5th out of those drivers at the Hockenheim ring. And we'll see if anyone can break into that top 5 here tonight. And the driver on your screen right now, Cohen Evans. You called him a silent assassin last time, John, and I think the 17 car might have a little bit of pace come race time. Good-looking paint scheme, as always, for the IUPUI team. And it would not surprise me to see Cohen Evans maybe jump into the top 5 here tonight. Always just a consistent driver, keeps the car on track, stays out of trouble, and I think that's going to pay dividends here at Road Atlanta tonight. John?
Yeah, absolutely. The consistency is key, and Cohen Evans has, like you said, been one of the most consistent drivers in the series, not only in this season, but all the previous ones as well. I mean, he's collected a fair amount of podiums himself as well, but he's always in that top 5 cars, really, and always battling for position, but always generally finishes the race without too much damage on that car. And so that's what we like to see. Doesn't rack up those instant points, nails that lap when he needs to, and just keeps his nose clean all the way through the end of the race. And that's really what makes the difference in championships like this. But at the end of the night, somebody's got to be able to take this battle to Sean Campbell's. We see a McLaren backed up there on this backstretch. I think that's the Robert Morris machine, the number 72. So that's going to be Nicholas Patinella that got it wrong. I think that was coming down turn 4, it might have looked like. Breast Cancer Awareness Night for Robert Morris with the pink and blue livery on that car. Love to see it. Game fuel there on the nose of the 72 machine as he gets set to go out here and try to set another fast lap if he can get one in. Alexander Klenk has actually popped a time in there into the 18-second range as well, a 118.9, so just over 0.2 off for the man in the Audi from WPI there in that very colorful livery scheme. And he and I were talking before this race about the Audi versus the Porsche, because I was saying that in the practices, I didn't really like how the Audi was feeling. I couldn't get it to turn. I tried a number of different setup things in it, and it just wasn't working for me. And I switched to the Porsche and immediately picked up 4 or 5 tenths just like that. And it's kind of surprised he stayed with the Audi, but if you can put up times like that, Jarrett, then more power to him, man.
Yeah, and I tell you what, sometimes maybe guys just like the challenge, and if I was to pick one guy who liked to challenge, it's Alexander Klenk, who's constantly been at the front of the field in Season 2 and Season 1. And he's kind of had a little battle here with Sean Campbell and Thomas Toomey, guys up there at the front. So it's good to see the skill level continue to rise here in the CIL, and guys continuing to push each other further and further as we head toward this kind of elite racing that we have here in front of you tonight.
Yeah, Parker Eaton out there again. We missed him, I think, last week at Hockenheim. Didn't get the NC State man out there. I think Matthew Norberg, his compatriot from NC State, was out there. I don't know if Norberg is joining us tonight. I don't think he had a big chance to practice this track. And speaking of practice, I mean, like you just said, with the level of competition that we've got in this league now, he really sends it over the curbs and collects the car in the wall there on the exit of turn 5. That can happen if you collect too much of that apex curb there. Just want to barely clip it. Big wiggle from Sean Campbell, actually, as he comes through that very same corner and in the Lamborghini tonight for him. So ditching the McLaren that he likes to run previously, and the Ford, I think, that he ran at Red Bull Ring. He's won in a number of cars. He's going to try to put the Lamborghini onto that list. But back to what I was saying a moment ago. So you were saying how competitive guys are getting in this field and how much they want to win. And it's showing in these practice sessions. Guys are throwing up 80 and 90 laps in a single practice alone. I know Thomas Toomey has set over 200 laps practicing for Road Atlanta here tonight. So that just shows how much guys have been working on their setups, working on their own skills to try to maximize their potential in all of these races, grab every last point that they can, and try to take this battle to the Neon Esports Randolph machine. I mean, that car is just so fast at every track we go to, in every scenario. He's actually improved on his qualifying time, I believe. He's now down to an 18.69 second lap. Toomey in second with an 18.979 second lap. So very fast cars out there. 3 cars in the 18s at the moment. Kyle Bonin for Clemson trying to find his way up there as well. Currently sitting 9th overall. That would be 8th in the students, just in front of Avery Walker, who is 2nd for the alumni, but that would be 10th overall. So slinging it out there on the exit of turn 12. I think he's going to abort this next lap, set that last lap there, and that did not improve him at all, unfortunately. Thomas Crump, another Clemson University driver, this time in the BMW, trying to set a last-minute lap here, is currently sitting in, I believe, 14th spot. And so he's got a number of help. He's got actually this Clemson team, Jared. I was saying earlier that if I don't know the school for a car and I just say Clemson, there's probably about a 30% chance I'm going to get it right for the size of that Clemson team that's out there. I think there's 4 or 5 different cars. Hagen Johnson on your screen as well in the Lamborghini, and most of them driving different cars too, Jarrett, which, you know, that might give them a lot of information as a team as to what driving style suits what person the best and what car the best and what car they need to use at each different track that we go to this season.
Yeah, and you mentioned Clemson, a couple different avenues that they've come to the CIL. Some have come through the SAE program, and others have come through the esports program. So the University of Clemson really diving into the sim racing aspect of of their school, and they're all in here at Road Atlanta. And I think we might see Kyle Bonin up there at the front before the night is said and done. He's had a couple good races, a couple top fives, and I think he's going to try and push tonight for that podium. And he needs a good run here, as it looks like Sean Campbell going to be on provisional pole, and John will take you through the top 10 starters.
Absolutely. So like you said, we've got Sean Campbell there for Randolph taking away the pole position here tonight with that 18.69 second lap, absolutely flying up there. Thomas Toomey on the outside in the Virginia machine. Alexander Klink's going to start third for WPI, and then Christian Gomez for FIU in fourth. Cohen Evans nails another top five qualifying position for the IUPUI team. Parker Eaton comes up sixth for NC State. Ted Burns, the first of the alumni, off of finally back with us after a long season of racing so far. I'm sure he's got more to do as well. Currently sitting seventh on the grid. Sean Valandia for UCLA in eighth. Kyle Bonin, the top Clemson driver that we've seen throughout the season, in ninth. And then Avery Walker for Virginia, the second alumni in the field, in 10th.
Starting 11th overall here tonight is Jeremy Rogers from Texas A&M University. Carl Limcool will start on his outside for St. Louis University. Rolling down your starting grid, Thomas Crump, another Clemson driver, rolls off 13th in the 98 machine. And Nick Daly from UT Arlington will start in 14th. Rahul Bolaneni from Michigan Tech in the 333 machine rolls off 15th. And Nathan Wiley from Southern New Hampshire will roll off 16th. Justin Roberts, another Clemson driver, starts 17th tonight. And Evan Puckett from Ball State University, just down the road, is in 18th. Esteban Munoz from FIU rolls off 19th. Shout out to the Panther Esports program watching tonight. And Scott Ratliff from Pittsburgh State will start in 20th.
And then your final five drivers on the grid. Andrew Williams for Clemson, another Clemson car there in 21st. Hagen Johnson joining him on the outside, another Clemson driver. Nicholas Patinella with the breast cancer awareness scheme on the Robert Morris University car, start 23rd here tonight. Then Austin DeLong for Penn College of Technology in 24th. Andrew Burrell for Clemson in 25th. Derek Ekmanis, no qualifying time set for him, in 26th, the last alumni in the field. And then Ryan Whitlock for Alabama at Huntsville is going to roll off 27th. So, Jarrett, we've got a full lap to get these guys' tires up to temperature, and that's going to help them a little bit here. Glad it's not a short lap to the green flag here. So guys got some time to feel out their tires and maybe get an idea of the grip levels as they go through turns 3 and turns 6 and 7, and try to get an idea of how much they can push on the brakes and nail that turn in on these cars on the outlap. But this outlet might be tricky, Jarrett. We'll keep an eye for spinners maybe a little bit further on down the field, but it's going to be a tricky start here.
Yeah, it is. You mentioned turn 3 going to be the spot to watch. You see 118 degrees on the track right now on the right side of your screen. 75 degrees in the air, but that sunshine shining down here at Road Atlanta. We might see some clouds before the night is said and done, and tires might need it by the end of this one. And it'll be very curious to see how guys race, how aggressively they race, and do we save tires at some point? John mentioned at the top of the broadcast, a lot of guys complained about tire wear during the practices, which were a little hotter than race conditions here tonight. But keep that in mind, maybe saving those tires for later in the run. John?
Yeah, absolutely. And that track temperature is slowly creeping up. When we started the practice about an hour ago at this point, it was about 108 degrees. So in an hour's time, it's creeped up 10 degrees. And we'd expect that same. It's a just after 1 o'clock start here in the simulator. So we're not quite yet at the hottest part of the day. iRacing accurately models that sun position and how it interacts with the track surface. So we'll expect guys to start to struggle more and more as the tires wear and as that track temperature increases, but they will be aided by the fact that that fuel load will burn off. So all guys were setting 18-second laps there in qualifying, at least this top 3. I don't expect to see that here on these first few laps. If guys can duck into the 19s, that's probably a great race pace. I expect to see most guys in that sort of 20-second range. And so guys are going to get paired up here as we head into the chicane. Pace car lights are out, and he'll pull off into the pit lane, and we're getting set here for this start. Jarrett, take it away for us.
Good field of 27 cars going to take the green flag. As you see him head through turns 10A and B as we get set to rock and roll. Sean Campbell is off, and he's off early. He's going to get a good jump. He's single file right behind him. Big block right there from Thomas Toomey as they roar on down towards turn 1.
Yeah, he did not waste any time getting on the throttle through that. Guys are still 3 wide as we enter here into turn 1. Still clean so far. Looks like Cohen Evans on the inside having to defend. Might have lost a position there to the NC State machine. Parker Eaton making up a spot. UCLA. We've got UTA sidewise coming through turn 3 and manages to avoid all the cars. Very lucky break there. Not often that we see it work out like that. But we've got the front end on a BMW missing. Not quite sure who that was. Didn't quite catch the number on that car. But Sean Campbell still up here in the front. Got about a 4-car length gap back to Thomas Toomey. Toomey's having to defend on Alexander Clank. Clank getting racy here early stages right now. And Clank having to actually defend from the FIU machine a little bit further back. Guys aren't quite going side by side through turns 6 and 7. Don't really want to kill your exit speed there if you can avoid it. But there's a pretty big gap there, Jarrett, between these top 3 cars as we head down this backstretch and into the chicane.
And down the backstretch, you can use a little bit of draft. The cars will suck up to each other, and keep that in mind. Guys might not have practiced that. Your braking point's going to change a little bit into turn 10A and B.
Whoa.
Right there, a little bit of trouble right there. That looks like the 26. That might be Kyle Bonin. It is.
Yeah, it is.
He's going to slide into the kitty litter, and he's going to have to get out of there safely, but he's going to be cost a ton of positions right there.
Yeah, he's going to drop the back of the field. And I saw another Clemson machine sliding across the second half of the chicane there. Not quite sure who that was. Was that his teammate that tagged him, as a matter of fact? No, that was Avery Walker, the 019 car, tagging him under braking there into the chicane. We see that other BMW making his way across the grass there on the other half of the chicane. So Kyle Bonin dropping in the back of the field. Currently sitting about 15 seconds off the lead as it is. Nick Daly, the only car behind him at the moment. A little bit further back, looks like Alexander Clank's going to go toe-to-toe with Christian Gomez here. The FIU and WPI battle raging strong here. Clank still defending through 6 into 7. Bit of a nudge there from the Porsche, going to come under attack from the other Porsche. NC State looking for opportunities here in the early stages. Going to be out of the draft, though. Christian Gomez is going to have the draft off of Alex's car as we head down here through turns 8 and 9. That's going to help him to regain, but now Alex has swapped positions over. The optimal line is going to be on the right-hand side for braking for turn 10, so that's advantage NC State, but FIU has the inside line here. I expect them to come away with the position here, and NC State wisely backs out of it as they head into turn 11. But now he's going to come under fire from Cohen Evans, and UCLA just behind him as well. UCLA on the inside, opportunistic move. If he can get it stuck still side by side here as we head towards turn 1, going to tuck back in behind. Wise move from Sean Valandia, choosing not to go toe-to-toe with Cohen Evans here too early as we get into lap 3. I think that's a wise move from Sean Valandia for me, Jarrett.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Guys backing out, just needing to conserve the car itself. Not even just the tires, but making that smart decision. We talked about that last week a lot. Making that business decision. I got to keep the car in one piece. Might not be the time to do it. And it's a long race. You got 1 hour ahead of you. We're only 3 minutes in with these short lap times. So we're going to see a lot of laps tonight. We're going to have a lot more fun still on tap. This 4-car battle. It's Cohen Evans, it's Sean Valendia, it's Parker Eaton, and Ted Burns looking on from back there in that white 081 car.
Yeah, Ted Burns is hoping that these guys get racy with each other, and if they don't take each other out, they'll certainly slow each other up if they continue to battle like that. I know Parker Eaton had a little bit of late defend on Cohen Evans that previous lap into turn 6. So we're right on board now with Sean Valandia on UCLA's nose as we come here into the chicane. You can see just how much bouncing is going on in the rear of these Porsches. I do think this is a Porsche track, Jared. This car does tend to hook up pretty well around here as these guys are demonstrating at the moment, even collecting a little bit of curb there on the inside of turn 12. Don't see too many cars that are okay with doing that. And actually, at the moment, Sean Campbell's just set the fastest lap of the race into the 19s. Parker Eaton also into the 19s, but he's in the draft at the moment as we go onto this drone shot. Really tight battle here. UCLA right on the tail of IUPUI coming down through turns 3 and 4 into the S's at the moment, trying to get this car hooked up there with the apex. Can't miss that braking zone. We've seen guys get it wrong there in qualifying. We've seen them get it wrong in practice. Everybody making it through here for the time being. It looks like that gap to Ted Burns that you just mentioned, Jared, is closing a little bit there. So UCLA might be being held up here a little bit by these Porsches in front.
And we'll see it right here as they head towards turn 9 and eventually toward turn 10. Just what you can do, maybe trying to set up that draft. And John, we think about car setup. Maybe this car is set up for a little more downforce. Guys have the open setup ability, so you can change that wing angle. Maybe the car is going to perform a little better in the draft. Maybe it's not going to perform as well in the draft. So we'll see guys try to manipulate that over the course of the night. Maybe tuck in behind someone and even save fuel. We saw fuel saving be a very big factor a couple weeks ago as well.
Yeah, and if these guys paid any attention to that race, that has to be on their minds, especially as they head down that long back stretch. While you do have the draft and you might be able to get up alongside and make that overtake stick, might be better to save some fuel. And because that's really what has won Sean Campbell the 3 races in a row up to this point, as we see Robert Morris attacking the other FIU machine there. The number 9, Esteban Munoz, having to defend the 25 Robert Morris machine, taking a lot of curb there on the inside of turn 3. And they're heading down here through turns 4 into the S's and trying to get this car hooked up there with the Apex. Not quite doing it just yet. That's actually going to be Southern New Hampshire. I keep seeing that same livery, kind of a similar livery on the side of the Southern New Hampshire car for Nathaniel Wiley. Apologies for him for confusing that with Robert Morris as he continues to follow FIU here through turn 7. Got to get that car hooked up here on the exit. That's really going to provide him any opportunities available as they head down this back straight. And like we just talked about, Jarrett, this is the opportunity to save fuel. And just behind these guys is Avery Walker, and we have gotten word from race control that Avery was determined to be at fault for that earlier collision with Kyle Bonin, so he will be awarded a penalty. We don't know what yet. Avery diving down the inside. He may know that he has a penalty coming, and so he's trying to make up as much ground as he can before it comes, and so he'll be a little bit better off once that happens. But no penalty assessed yet, so he'll stay out there at the moment and try to follow Southern New Hampshire and FIU across the line.
So that battle continuing to rage on. Another battle up at the front taking shape. Christian Gomez trying to chase down Alexander Klenk in for that 3rd position. And right behind him, Parker Eaton continuing to look on. A little shimmy shake right there from a couple of the cars. They're all hanging on, but Sean Campbell running away with it. Already 3.5 seconds out front. And that's that clean air effect maybe a little bit, John.
Yeah, it's a little bit deja vu from what we've seen at Hockenheim. He did the same thing. He stretched out an early lead, and then he just kind of held on to that lead and managed it. Didn't burn as much fuel as he had to, conserved tires where he could, and just sort of kept that gap right in that range. So I'm not very surprised to see that happening here again tonight. Thomas Toomey, I know, though, is probably trying to push pretty hard, so we'll watch what happens at the pit stops. But Thomas Toomey doesn't have any help this time from Avery Walker. If you remember back at Hockenheim, Avery was just in front of him for a good portion of the race, and so that was helping Toomey to save a decent amount of fuel across that opening stint. Not quite enough to take that battle to Sean Campbell, though. On board with Ted Burns in the 081 machine, Wisconsin driver, the IMSA race engineer, helping that team, Kelly Moss Road, race to 7 IMSA championships. So he knows how to set up a car, and we know that he knows how to drive a car, whether it's open wheel or a closed cockpit car or a GT car, as he's in tonight into 3rd gear, going over the turn 3 apex. You can see just how hard it is, guys. See where this next apex is for turn 4. He managed to get it hooked up with the apex. Looks like the 3 portions in front of him didn't quite find it. A little bit of a target fixation maybe going on for the cars in front. Ted Burns trying to find some clean air to get that nose of the McLaren hooked up there on the bumps on the exits of turn 5. But he is now closed up right underneath Cohen Evans. I think UCLA at some point recently has made that pass on Cohen Evans. I don't know if we missed that, Jarrett, but UCLA has moved up to 6th position. IUPUI, this is where he got it done. Actually, we did see this happen, Jarrett. Oh, wait, no, this is a carbon copy, but he managed to get it done this time. Instead, sucking back behind, carries that apex speed through there on turn 12, and by the time we get to turn 1, he's got 6th place secured. So back to Ted Burns trying to hunt down Cohen Evans again. Doesn't really need to. The only car that he has to worry about is Jeremy Rogers, who is the next car on track, but he's 3 seconds behind him. And so the alumni and the students battling for separate points championships here tonight. So Ted Burns, at the end of the night, right now will take home the same amount of points as Sean Campbell would. But he still wants to be in front of these cars if he can and put some distance between him and Jeremy. You see that other McLaren working his way out there. Actually, Ted Burns, as I say, goes on the inside of Cohen Evans into turn 1. Tricky spot to do that. I don't know if Cohen's sort of let him do that, because that was a bit strange for me, Jarrett.
Yeah, I think that might have been one of those accept defeat kind of moments for Cohen Evans. lose the battle but win the war. Maybe back out of it. You know Ted's kind of been on your bumper, and maybe follow Ted. Maybe pick up a spot or two where you're a little bit slower. And it looks like Ted going to pull over to the side, perhaps. Nope, just going to that side of the track, breaking up the draft a little bit. Right in front of him, Parker Eaton and Sean Valendia continuing to battle. It looks like Parker may be content behind that 51 machine of Sean Valendia from UCLA. Good-looking paint scheme as well. Really, all the cars in your field here tonight have wonderful paint schemes, but a couple really catch your eye, and that's definitely Sean Valendia's UCLA scheme is one of them.
Yeah, that chrome on the front of that car looks absolutely fantastic. Another one of my favorites is going to be Evan Puckett. We're currently in 14th for Ball State. Also love the livery on that machine now on your screen. Defending, actually, from Williams, the Clemson driver behind the number 23 machine, looking here to the outside as we head down the straight. And we'll see if he can't secure that position. I don't think it's going to happen, though. He's on the outside, not the optimum line into the corner, but very late on the brakes for the car on the outside, and sweeping down in front is the number 23 machine. Going to compromise his line off the corner, but doesn't matter. It's a single line through turn 11 and turn 12. Actually, as we say that, the BMW behind looks like he's making a move on the inside of the Pitt State machine, I believe, just behind him. So Derek Ekmanis in the BMW making up a position without a front splitter on that car. I don't know how that car's even turning at the moment. It's got to have horrendous understeer. He's waiting to use that fast repair until he gets a little bit further into the stint and can accept a little bit more fuel into the tank. But he's closing a lot of space on these cars in front. Pretty surprised at Derek Ekmanis' ability to hustle that BMW through with as much damage as it's got on it, but clearly not too slow in the straights, as it were.
Yeah, it almost looks like the Batmobile with those two front tires sticking out a little bit and that matte black paint scheme on there. But he's just going to tuck behind Evan Puckett right here from Ball State University and hang on. Right behind him, Scott Ratliff and Thomas Crump. Thomas Crump you saw slid off the track in turn 10 a little bit earlier. He was right behind Kyle Bonin, who was forced off the track by Avery Walker. So, tough day for the Clemson crowd as they try to fight back and get a top 10 out of tonight. But I tell you who's also fighting. It's Parker Eaton, who just continues to be all over the back bumper right there. We saw Scott Ratliff dive to the inside. He's going to take that position for that 747 machine. We'll have to take another look at that one.
Yeah, so how did he get this done here? Under brakes, late move on the inside line, actually. He just left the door open to Derek Ekmanis on the inside line to the chicane, and the 747 machine has no problem taking that position back, and they swap again into turn 1. So I think we're seeing a little bit of a difference in strengths between the two drivers and maybe the two cars as well. Scott a little bit cautious into turn 1, avoids the curb at turn 3, but into the chicane has no problem sending one up the inside. So Pitt State looking good with that paint scheme and looking good here on track as well. Currently sitting in 17th position, and according to that timing ticker, it looks like Thomas Crump just slotted him up the inside. I don't know if Scott made a mistake actually there, but he's lost 2 positions as we follow on board with this drone cam here into turn 6. So unfortunate for Scott Ratliff losing a handful of positions there. Now he's got Nick Daly just in front of him. So a guy that he is racing for position, another alumni, the UTA machine in that beautiful blue liveried car from UTA Racing, trying to hold off the 747 machine. But you were talking about Parker Eaton just a moment ago. Jarrett currently sitting about 2/10 off of Sean Valandia's bumper still. This battle continues to rage on for that NC State UCLA battle. And this is the way that you get guys to make mistakes. You sit there right on their back bumper. You don't have them have any inch, but you also don't go for any moves that aren't absolutely 100%. If you let them know that that bumper is there that whole time, they're going to get frustrated eventually. They're going to keep trying to push and get that gap to you, and that is only going to result in the increased risk of mistakes. We've seen it before happen in the CIL. I've done it myself, not only in this series, but in regular iRacing and in real life. It's a real phenomenon that happens. Looks like Ted Burns has managed to clear a good amount of space as well and trying to hunt down Parker Eaton too. So trying to put more space between him and Jeremy Rogers. Rogers for A&M, about 3.5 seconds off this battle at the moment.
So guys starting to kind of get their dancing partners a little bit. A guy that they're content running with, and you see these top 3 completely out of the zip code that Sean Campbell's in. He's 5.5 seconds ahead on track, and he is just checked out once again. And we start to think about maybe an undercut, John. I hesitate to say we're going to beat him on pace, So maybe we got to try figuring out some kind of trick, pit early, pit late kind of thing tonight.
Yeah, I just don't know how any of that's going to work out. You have to be pretty close to the car in front for either of those strategies to work for. You've got to probably be within 2 seconds for you to consider the undercut. It's not quite like Suzuka last season that we saw where the undercut seemed to be actually pretty powerful. I don't think that's going to be the case here tonight. But we'll stay tuned for that. The pit stop window not quite open yet. It opens at about the 20-minute mark. But then closes probably about that 40-minute mark. But unless you're this guy, it's probably open until that 50-minute mark. You only really need to put in probably another 4 gallons to make it the end of the race with the amount of fuel that we know that Neon Racing Machine can save. I wonder how much wing he's running on that car. We haven't been watching him too much tonight, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised if he's got a minimal amount of wing on the back end of that car, because that will obviously reduce a good amount of drag, enable a nice high top speed, especially down here into the chicane. And so we'll keep an eye and see what his pit stop times are. That'll give us an idea of how much fuel he's had to put in at the pit stop. But yeah, Jarrett, I don't know of an alternate strategy that's quite going to work out for anybody here tonight. But we'll keep an eye on it. And as we say that, it looks like Alexander Klenk, who's going to come up in this picture just behind here, under fire from the Porsche on the inside of turn 12, losing the position to Christian Gomez. Gomez claiming that final podium position. Alexander looking to that inside line for turn 1. Not a lot of grip there, braking on the inside line. So he's going to have to settle for 4th for the time being and maybe tuck back in underneath that Porsche. The Porsche got it done on the exit of the chicane, got great traction. We know the Porsche is great on corner exit and gets the move done well before they get to turn 1 through the exit of turn 12. So well done to the FIU team, number 65, making it all the way up there to 3rd at the moment, moving up 1 position from his starting place in 4th. So that's what we like to see. I love watching Christian Gomez race as well, Jared. He does a great job. He's got some great hands on the wheel as well, able to catch some pretty big moments from the car. So now we're watching Ted Burns get it wrong on the apex of turn 5, just clips a little bit of curb there and rotates that car. That we know the mid-engine cars are more at risk of doing that than some of the other ones that you have the ability to drive. And Ted Burns, not used to seeing mistakes like that from him, Jarrett.
No, not at all. And you mentioned that real-life racing experience, and he was out in the wet at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and as the car pulled over on the side of the road there, we'll have to figure out who that is. Looks like Andrew Williams, another Clemson driver. We mentioned Ted Burns in that Formula Ford, getting it done at Indianapolis Motor Speedway about 2 weeks ago, I believe. Or was that last week?
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago, if I stand. Somebody can probably correct me in the chat, but he was out there at SCCA runoffs running a Formula Ford, his first wet race ever in any car that he's ever raced. From Formula SCA, never drove in the wet, and never drove the Formula Ford in the wet before. And so hustling that car to 13th place in a very, very strong field out there at SCCA runoff. So well done to him. And Carl Lemke was out there helping him as well. I think we mentioned that on the Hockenheim broadcast that Carl was actually racing from the hotel room as Pitt State's looking to the inside on Ball State. Not going to make that move stick for the time being. UTA up there just in front as well. But Evan Puckett going to be able to hang on to 14th for the time being. Evan Puckett being a student and Scott Ratliff being an alumni, these guys don't want to get tangled up in an instant because there's no point differential if they swap positions here. They would still score the same amount of points because they're not racing for the same set of points. So we want to see that. We want to see alumni backing out of moves that don't have to happen, and the same thing from the students. But if Evan Puckett is holding up Scott Ratliff, Scott's going to try to make this move happen. The next opportunity he's probably going to have, Jared, is probably down here into the chicane. So we'll look to see how good of an exit he gets here. Leaves a little bit of space there on the exit. We would like to see that car carry that speed all the way through the corner and then right up to that exit curb, but he's going to have that draft helping him, and he's going to duck out a little bit early, could get a little bit closer to the bumper, but it's not going to matter. We've seen him make the move on Derek Ekmanis earlier in the chicane. Evan Puckett still trying to look to that inside line. I don't know if this is going to work for him, and he knows it. He's going to tuck back inside and let Scott Ratliff take that position and maybe take that fight to Nick Daly, who now has Ted Burns in front of him to go hunt down after Ted's mistake at turn 5 just a lap ago. But Ted Burns still in the podium positions for the alumni.
Yeah, and I tell you what, watching the lap of Scott, we'll see it right here. He just seems a little bit slow, a little bit tedious through these S's, through this first sector, but then he really picks it up in those second and third sectors here at Road Atlanta, and that's something that a lot of these drivers talked about, having a favorite kind of part of the track. And I think you can say that with everyone, that there's some turns that you really like. We were talking to Scott before the race, actually, and he talked about how much he likes turn 3 now that he's figured it out. So guys, really starting to come into their own and get a little bit of a rhythm. It's that 1 hour race you see on the left side of your screen. Not a whole lot of battles going on, a lot of big gaps in between these cars, and this is kind of that mid-race lull, but be careful because you can lull yourself into that false sense of security that we just saw Ted Burns do, and all it takes is that one little mistake. John?
Yeah, absolutely. As we're watching Thomas Toomey here now on your screen, it's got St. Louis just behind him on track, though I think St. Louis is a lap down at the moment. So that's not for position. That's going to help Thomas Toomey to hang on to that second spot from Christian Gomez for the time being. A little bit further back, looks like UCLA has made their way back up onto the back end of that Audi just behind the WPI machine, going to have to defend from UCLA. And that gap to Parker Eaton has opened up. We just talked about it, Jarrett, where Parker Eaton was putting a lot of pressure on the back of UCLA just a few laps ago, but that has gone from a 0.2 of a second advantage to about a 1.5 seconds advantage. So I don't know if Parker got a corner a little bit wrong. Maybe he ran a little bit wide and picked up an off-track penalty and perhaps a slowdown. That would perhaps explain that, but NC State currently in 6th position, 1.5 seconds off the UCLA bumper. But Thomas Toomey, 6.6 seconds on lap 16 in. So looks like Sean Campbell still managing a pretty strong pace here pretty late in the race. I'm going to take a look at his lap times pretty quick. Currently got the fastest lap time, and that's not a big surprise, at a 19.2. And he's actually had most of his laps in the 19, the majority of them thus far. And for anybody that was watching a little bit earlier on the broadcast, I was mentioning that I didn't expect too many guys to be really in the low 19s, maybe the mid 19s and the 20s for race pace. So Sean Campbell just continuing to put in impressive lap times. That's just pretty incredible. We've got another drive-through penalty for car 078. I think that's going to be Derek Ekmanis for the San Diego State team. Unfortunately, going to get a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. Not quite sure where that one happened. But Neon Esports got some traffic up in front. Clemson University, a car yet to clear. I'm sure he'll get that done here on the backstretch, Jarrett. But this is one of the other things. We were talking about it just before. We kind of missed some of the multi-class action that we had. The traffic added sort of an interesting variable to these races, but on a track that's only 2.5 miles and 12 turns long, then you're going to run into some traffic over the course of the race, and they're going to be going pretty much the same speed as you. So how you negotiate these cars that are going to be getting blue flags in their mirrors is going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, having specific passing zones as well. You don't want to get it done in turn 1. You want to set up those straights, and sometimes that patience is hard to come by, as we see a couple guys on pit lane. But Sean Campbell up to the top spot, and he will go through lap traffic. You notice on the left side of your screen, you'll notice the position highlighted in green is the driver you are currently watching, and names will be blue and red determined based on that driver, that selected driver. So right now you can see 13th on back is 1 lap down to Sean Campbell, and that's scored at the iRacing finish line. So you can see he's putting a healthy gap on the rest of the field. On the right side of your screen, you see that track map, CAM of Campbell on the upper left side of the track map currently as he exits turn 7. And that TWO, that's Thomas Toomey, all the way back there in second, as you see that gap right there, just continuing to grow.
Yeah, that incredible gap, 7.2 seconds, and continuing to grow at every stage of this race. Jarrett, I did not think here on lap 18 that only the top 12 cars would still be on the lead lap. The only car, and actually Wisconsin, I think, just went a lap down according to our ticker. So that's an interesting one. But FIU and Wisconsin, maybe that ticker's still changing its mind a little bit there for the Wisconsin machine. But yeah, only 12 cars still on that lead lap, and only looks like 9 students still on the lead lap and 2 alumni. So pretty incredible at the moment. And Neon Esports, I mean, guys were saying it on Twitter, on Instagram beforehand. This Neon Esports car, it is dangerous fast. And I see some guys talking about how his setups are insanely dangerous. I'm going to take that to mean they're pretty loose setups. I'm not particularly surprised by that. A loose setup, in my opinion, is a fast setup. And when you get a guy like Sean Campbell that can manage a fast setup like that and a loose setup, then it's going to add up to be a pretty quick race car over the course of its entire stint. As we're looking back now from WPI on the UCLA nose, that chrome gold looking pretty big in the mirror at the moment. Let's see if he ducks the inside. WPI choosing not to defend surprisingly, and UCLA took it back inside there into turn 6. It is an overtaking spot, but it's a compromised one, Jarrett, because you got to remember turn 7 really leads us onto this back stretch. So you just mentioned you need to pick your zones at which you're going to pass at, and I like the move from UCLA there to tuck back in behind and not make the move there. If anything, try to set up for that move coming down to the chicane, which is, I'm sure, what he's trying to do here, but it doesn't quite look like he's closing that gap quite fast enough. WPI still defending to the inside. Wise move there, but going to cover back over on top of the braking zone. Get the car hooked up there nicely on the apex. And so Christian Gomez, the 65 machine, with the Porsche splitting these two. Actually, it looks like somebody dove back into the pit lane. Is that UCLA taking an early pit stop? It is indeed Sean Valandia going the alternate strategy, Jarrett. I eat my words from earlier. I didn't think anybody was going to go for the alternate route, but we've got Sean Valandia, our first taker.
Yeah, and you said it right at the 25-minute mark. So I think this is a little early from what we've seen in previous races. Most of the guys will pit in between about minutes 35 and 45. A lot happened right at that 40-minute mark. So it's a little bit early, but should be able to get to the end. And I'll be curious to see how this works out. Our crew chief's able to put Sean Valendia in that open air where he can just hot lap it. Or is he going to be stuck in traffic when he comes out of pit lane? That's all done on their side, and hopefully it's a good call for the UCLA machine as he's going to come off of pit lane. It looks like he's got wide open track in front of him. This could be a good play right here for the UCLA team.
Yeah, we'll keep track of that, but I don't know if this is going to matter for probably the next 20 minutes or so, Jarrett. That's probably about the time that all these other guys will start thinking about making a pit stop. So he's going to have plenty of time to just hang out there by himself and try to put in some good hot laps on those tires that are only about 21 laps old at the moment, but they're probably a good 30% worn if I had to guess based on some of the information we were seeing from the practice sessions. And that track temp, we mentioned it earlier, Jarrett, continuing to creep up now at 121 degrees. And so that's a creeping up rate of just about 3 degrees in about 25 minutes or so. So these guys that have tuned their setups for these hotter track temps, that's going to help them out later in the race and help to save the tires as well. The strategy for setting up for a hotter track is generally a little bit softer of a car and probably going to run a little bit less camber to get the tire loading a little bit more evenly distributed across the tire patch. So it doesn't matter if it's a cold track or a hot track. That strategy pretty much stays the same for tire saving. But in terms of a hot track, the softer springs and softer damper setups might give some guys a little bit of pause as they come through some of the higher speed sections on this track and the car really loads up there. So back to Ted Burns and Rahul Bolaneni and Nathaniel Wiley trying to make their way through turn 5 there. Wiley getting a great run there on the exit of 5. Southern New Hampshire State going to be on the inside line here for turn 6. Rahul Bolaneni not quite going to be able to defend that position into turn 6. Going to tuck in back behind. And again, Jarrett, just like I said, he's got to focus that exit to try to get that position back before the chicane. But also, like I said earlier, these guys not fighting for the same set of points, Jarrett. They're an alumni and they're a student. Rahul Bolaneni, a triple numbered car with that red windshield banner, and Nathaniel Wiley, that green windshield banner with a 2-digit number on that BMW. So not the same points battle going on here. And Rahul Bolaneni, though, still having a great result here tonight, currently in second for the alumni. I'm not sure if that's his first podium for the alumni if it stays like that, but certainly a good one nevertheless.
Yeah, and Raul only 2 spots back of Jeremy Rogers, your leading alumni from Texas A&M, and right in front of him, Derek Heckmanis has fixed that car up with that fast repair. But Jeremy Rogers, one of our onboard drivers here tonight, as you roll on board with that Texas A&M team and those Vegas strong gloves that he wears week in and week out. And Jeremy Rogers, always kind of that top contender as well for the alumni category. So no surprise to see him mixing it up with those top students. And we'll see if he's able to just run his race the rest of the way.
Yeah, and Jarrett, we talked a lot about consistency, especially in terms of what Cohen Evans is able to do here on track. But Jeremy Rogers, another one of those guys that is ultra consistent. We did some Indy Pro 2000 races earlier this week together, and I was impressed at his ability to just sit right on my rear wing the entire race. Not easy to do in cars that are heavily dependent on downforce, because that makes that car pretty loose in tracks, especially like the Red Bull Ring. But Jeremy Rogers, incredibly consistent driver, and when you see guys like Ted make those rare mistakes that he does make, then that gives Jeremy those top spots. As we see Clemson, the number 7 driver, getting it wrong there. Pitt State having to check up out of it. Number 7 machine going to be Hagan Johnson, which I think was the leading Clemson car in the field here tonight. So Clemson not having a great time here at the moment. So yeah, rough night for that Clemson team. Scott Ratliff doing a good job to avoid that car as well. But A&M, if they can hold on to that win, I'm sure Jeremy would be happy with that. I'm pretty sure he was pretty dang happy when A&M beat Alabama this past weekend in the college football championships, or not championship rather, but just a football game. But he's got another car just in front of him, trying to pick up a draft off that spun number 7 machine. It would look like that's going to help him to get a little bit extra speed down here on this backstretch. Sorry, that's actually Ted Burns, who's making a move for position on Hagan Johnson, really squeezing him down in that braking zone. But he probably sees what we see here on the screen. We've got that Neon Esports machine coming up here behind him in the mirrors. He does not want to go a lap down, because he will have to give that position back. The rule book specifically states that you got to obey the blue flags. So we watch Jeremy Rogers here on a replay, getting it wrong at turn 6. Guys having some spinning issues here in the McLarens tonight, especially in the alumni field, Jarrett. I'm not sure if I predicted that.
No, not at all. And you mentioned the hot track a couple times, and I think that might start coming into play as the track receives a little more rubber. We talked about it's getting hotter, so that track is going to change dynamically over the course of the night, and iRacing does an excellent job at modeling that. So guys will have to change their driving style just a little bit. They're not going to have to go completely crazy, but maybe you take a corner a little bit differently. Maybe you get on the throttle just a tad later. And like you guys have said in the chat, the McLaren, a tough car for Road Atlanta.
Yeah, it sure looks like that at the moment. The only guy really able to make it work in any great fashion and stay consistent has been Thomas Toomey, who sat up there in second all night long. 1X only for that instant score on him. The only driver that has anything over 10 or double digits in the instant scores was Kyle Bonham, but he is 3 laps down and out of this race after that earlier incident really kind of put him out of commission for this race, unfortunately. So Thomas Toomey on your screen there, holding on to that about 1.1 second gap back to the FIU machine. Gomez still running a pretty clean race, and like I said, I like watching Gomez drive the car. He's got some pretty quick hands and is able to catch some slides, but he might have a slight tendency, Jarrett, to just overdrive that Porsche a little bit. And I suffer from the same tendency, and so I know exactly what's going to happen to him at the end of this race. He's going to suffer a little bit additional tire wear. As we see Sean Campbell, sorry, breaking news here in the CIL. Sean Campbell going for the undercut as well, 32 minutes into this race, and he's taking the opportunity to come down into pit lane. Interesting strategy. I didn't see him in a lot of practice sessions this week, but I'm wondering if he set up his own test session, Jarrett, and figured out something that maybe these other drivers don't know yet.
You could be very right, as he's already heading out back onto the track. He's only going to lose 8 positions and only going to lose really about 15, 20 seconds. And a great pit stop for Sean Campbell. We'll see how this plays itself out. But if you're the guys up at the front, I think you got to stay out for as long as possible at this point, don't you?
That would be what I would do at this position. It's kind of like what we hear happening in F1, where they tell him to do the opposite of what the guy in front does. If he pits, you stay out. If he stays out, you should pit. And so if I'm Thomas Toomey at this point, I'm just going to take this fuel tank as far as I absolutely can, wait for that fuel load to burn down as late as I possibly can. I'll take that opportunity to pit, and then hope that I've just got enough gap between me and Campbell to hold on to that position. As well as this can be a risky strat for Campbell, because now he's got 8 cars in front of him before he would be able to get to Toomey even. And, overtakes are risky inherently. When you go side by side with a car through a corner, there's always the risk that the other driver, whether he means to or not, can always make a little bit of a contact with you and send you sideways. And that Lamborghini can have a tendency to get a little bit upset, and with the Sean Campbell setup on it, that might be even worse for him. But if there's a driver that can make it happen, Jarrett, we know it's Sean Campbell, that Neon Esports driver from Randolph, knows what he's doing out there in that McLaren. In that Lamborghini at the moment. But Toomey now inherits that lead, got a 7/10 gap back there to Christian Gomez, who's now in second position. But this is going to shuffle up how these positions look. It will not look the same here in about 15 minutes time, Jarrett.
Yeah, and we mentioned it a couple times, but the pit window anywhere from now until about that 45-minute mark. So right around 45 minutes, expect to have seen mostly everyone on pit lane, barring any kind of miracle fuel saving. Each of these cars are limited to a 70% fuel capacity. So normally the GT3 cars will make it right about an hour, if not a little bit more. So that fuel tank, 70% of what its normal size would be, forcing that pit stop for refueling. And we don't expect to see anybody take tires here tonight. It'd be surprising if we did, even with the hot track. It's cooled down a bit from what the guys experienced in practices. So I'd be shocked if we see anybody take tires. So expect fuel only for the rest of the field here tonight.
Yeah, I would agree there, Jared, as we watch Rahul Bolanetti from Michigan Tech trying to go at it again with Southern New Hampshire. I wonder if what Rahul's seeing is the fact that Jeremy Rogers is just 4 seconds up the road from these guys. So if he can clear Wiley here, he might be able to close that gap there. And by the time they get to the pit stops, he may be able to make something happen throughout this last 25 minutes of the race. And that would be a great first win for Rahul if he could get that one done. But that remains to be seen, and that is our closest battle on track at the moment, second to only Christian Gomez and Thomas Toomey in the top two. Alexander Klenk run a pretty good race so far. He said that he's not had really any practice into this race. We mentioned it at the top of the broadcast, sitting about 2 seconds off of Christian Gomez's rear bumper right now in third, but that's probably going to end up being fourth on track after the pit stop phase totally filters out here. And so who else we got in the field at the moment? I saw Austin DeLong was in the pit stops just a little bit ago. The Penn College of Technology driver currently running in 23rd, trying to chase down Ball State, but that is a tall order, a 18-second gap between those drivers. Carl Lemke not having a great night for that alumni driver for St. Louis, 3 seconds off of Ryan Whitlock, currently last in the alumni. And even Derek Ekmanis, who actually had a drive-through penalty a little bit earlier on, is currently sitting in third from last in the alumni, just off the bumper of Avery Walker, the other alumni that's had a penalty. Not a great night for the alumni, it would seem. Nick Daly hanging on to third position for the alumni for that UTA machine, currently 11th overall, 2.5 seconds off of Esteban Munoz, your second FIU driver in the field. So back to Rahul Bolanetti, trying to make these moves happen on Nathaniel Wiley. They've got another lapped car just in front of them. That may play into this battle, Jarrett.
Yeah, you'll see it right here. We'll see maybe, tough spot right there is a little compromised exit from the 72 machine. That's Nicholas Patinella. They're going to go 3 wide, sort themselves out. Patinella backs out of it wisely, and to his credit, Bolognini saw the gap. He went for it, and he's able to make the pass on Nathaniel Wiley.
I like seeing those kinds of moves. They are opportunistic. You are able to read the cars in front of you and just make that move stick. So well done to him, making it 3 wide, going through the center there. Really the only option he probably had if he wanted to stay in the throttle. Otherwise, he would have had to check out and tuck back in behind the BMW. Trying to break the draft from the BMW. He's going to leave that door a little bit too open, I think, on the inside, but the BMW is going to break a little bit earlier. I keep saying Sam Houston State. I'm a Texas guy. I apologize for that. Southern New Hampshire backing out of that braking zone a little bit early. As actually Rahul didn't need to make that move. Probably he just dove into the pit lane, Jarrett.
Yeah, so Rahul going to join the takers on pit lane. And right behind him, Sean Campbell will take that position. Sneaks by the lap car of Patinella. And he's going to set his sights on Nathaniel Wiley. Esteban Munoz also on pit lane for the FIU Panther Esports team. So pit lane starting to get pretty busy here at the 38-minute mark.
Yeah, I think this is about the time that we expected guys to start doing these pit stops. So we'll have to keep our eyes on Toomey. He needs to go as deep as he can at this point. He is committed to this long-term strategy if he can get it done. So as soon as he's got about 0.7 of a gallon left in that tank when he crosses the line, he needs to come in immediately. Penn College is going to hold him up a little bit here, and we'll see if he gives him the position through turn 11. Not quite. We'll see what the 22 machine does here. The Ferrari for Clemson diving into the pit lane lane there. Toomey has to clear this car really fast here. I think this guy's got blue flags. He should have them. He's going to lift a little bit there. Christian Gomez. No, he's actually going to defend the position. No, he's going to give it up to both the drivers into turn one. Not the optimal way to do that, I might say. If you can do that earlier on the straight, that's going to benefit all of the drivers, unfortunately. So Penn College not quite getting out of the way quite quick enough on that one, but still obeying the blue flags and abiding by the rule book. Another set of cars coming down in their pit lane. I saw Cohen Evans, Parker Eaton, and Alexander Clank coming into the pit lane. So where these guys feed out will give us a great reference, Jarrett, of how Sean Campbell is. Sean Campbell's already passed these guys, actually. So this might not give us as good of a reference as I was hoping for. But yeah, Sean Campbell racing a great race at the moment. To me, a second gap back here to Gomez, and then Jeremy Rogers 20 seconds off these guys and still on the same pit strategy. Just incredible.
And remember Sean Valendia actually with the, we'll call it the super undercut. He's still 11 seconds back of Sean Campbell. So when this all cycles out, I expect we're going to see Sean Campbell in the lead, Sean Valendia in second, and then it's a matter of can these guys sneak up and sneak past Valendia. Toomey's in a pretty good spot. You're going to lose about 43, 44 seconds in terms of total pit time. So Toomey, if he's able to make a little more time, he might shake out right with Sean Valendia. And only time will tell. Christian Gomez going to dive to pit lane now for the 65 machine. So that's going to be mostly everyone down pit lane. Guys who've not pitted consist of Thomas Toomey, who's on your screen, and Jeremy Rogers in the 112. Everyone else has come down pit lane for service, John.
Yeah, and Jeremy Rogers now in pit lane, just as you said that. So Thomas Toomey, the only car left out on track on that empty tank, or what's pretty close to an empty tank right now. So he's going to have a pretty light and fast race car compared to the other guys, but not going to be able to carry that for too much longer. And lap 31 here, we're expecting about 40 to 45 laps or so in this race. And so he's got to get in. It's about 0.7 gallons per lap, Jarrett. So he's probably got to add about 10 gallons to make it to the end of the race when he does come down pit lane. But it's going to be very tight here. We're going to see where he feeds out. But Sean Campbell, 26 seconds behind. You just said it's about 43 seconds total time spent in the pit lane. So we know how this is going to end, Jarrett. Sean Campbell going to re-inherit that lead. And, you know, I'm thinking about it at the moment, Jarrett. I don't think we've seen domination like this in a race since really the first race of the pilot season, when Kevin Vu just absolutely walked away with that inaugural win for him. And I forget the college he drives for, as a matter of fact, but Kevin Vu just walked away with that. I don't think we've seen domination since that time.
No, and Kevin Vu at Spa, no less, the famous track out there across the way. But John Campbell, the number 30, set to say, I see that and I raise you another, as he's going to sneak on by Thomas Toomey, who's just gotten to his pit box, I believe. Yeah, you can see it right there, that second pit box. And here is your new leader, Sean Campbell. And it's not even close, John.
Yeah, not even close. Virginia's going to give it their best effort here with under 20 minutes to go. Finally out of the pit box, got some fresh Sunoco fuel in that McLaren, but that's a big gap to fight down here. It's now up to 9.7 seconds, almost 10 seconds, Jarrett. What was it before we came to the pits? It was right on 8 seconds, I think. So by doing that earlier undercut and combined with probably just Sean Campbell's raw speed, pulled an additional over 2 seconds compared to these guys. A little bit further back, though, Sean Valandia has closed up on the tail end of Christian Gomez for that final podium position. Kind of gets it wrong there on the exit of turn 5, but not going to hurt him too bad. I think he's going to be able to stay in touch with Gomez here. At least I would hope so. I'd love to see a battle for that final podium position here in the closing stage of this race, but we've got a good amount of lap traffic just in front. Looks like, was that Robert Morris on the wall on the inside of turn 7, the 72, Nicholas Patinella getting it wrong there, probably caught a little bit of curb, maybe caught a little bit of grass on the outside of that exit there. And that's going to spin that car around. Unfortunate for Robert Morris University, but Sean Valandia looking to the inside on that BMW, the BMW lap car, obeying those blue flags and cleanly giving up that position at the optimum point. Best place to do it is going to be in that braking zone, as Nathaniel Wiley just demonstrated. So back to Parker Eaton and Cohen Evans. Parker's dropped back down to 7th for the time being. Cohen Evans, after losing that spot there on the initial lap, has been able to hang on to the 6th spot pretty well here, Jarrett.
Yeah, we mentioned him at the top of the broadcast. Cool, calm, collected, and consistent. Cohen Evans all season long, and Knight, no exception, holding on to that 6th position. We'll see if he can make up enough ground. It's a tall task to catch Alexander Klink up in front of you in 5th spot. But he's holding Parker Eaton off for the time being, and I think he's got the speed to do it the rest of the way. 15 minutes to go. So the number 17 team looking good. Back up a little bit. Sean Valendia back to the back bumper. Christian Gomez. This is one of your closest battles on track. And a big wreck. It looks like Evan Puckett and Hagen Johnson getting collected here.
Yeah, we'll take a look and see what happens here. Hagen Johnson on the outside. Evan Puckett just kind of opened up the steering. Didn't expect the Lamborghini to quite be so tight off that corner, it looks like. Not quite sure which Porsche that was that avoided that instant so cleanly. Their UTA having to take avoiding action as Hagen Johnson rejoins the track. And so good job to Nick Daly there in the UTA machine. Saw that one coming and dove the outside. Well done. And looks like he was able to keep that car pretty straight after that one as well. But always want to be careful with those rejoins, Jarrett. We've seen it before. Don't really want to see too much more of that. But back to this battle. Sean Valandia just under a 10th off of Christian Gomez, really laying on that pressure. You could look and see just an inch between these two. Don't want to get that net code issue that we've seen occur in a couple of races so far on the CIL. I think that was Brazil is the one that I'm thinking of. Might have been between Michael Kaholich and Sean Campbell, where those two spun each other around, but that ended up being a net code issue. But when you get right up to those bumpers, Jarrett, that has to be on these drivers' mind. You want to put as much pressure on, but if the internet lords decide that your car's in a different position than where you say it is, you might just end up inside that rear bumper of the 65 machine.
Yeah, I think a famous race car driver once said you have to leave the space, and these guys race with each other week in and week out, so they know what Christian Gomez is going to do. They know what Sean Valendia is going to do. So able to hang on for the time being, but you mentioned it. You don't know about the net code, so make that move. Make it clear you're making that move. And, it's tight down here.
Leaving the space there, just enough space. Ultimate respect from between these guys. 51 going deep in that corner, but parks it on the apex. Sean Valandia doing a great job there in the Porsche. I don't know if FIU's going to quite have the speed coming down through turn 11, still underneath that rear bumper. This is for the final podium position, Jarrett. This matters a lot to these guys. Valandia knows it too. He's defending to that inside line. Doesn't want to give Gomez any opportunity to sneak one up the inside when he's not looking. Looks like Southern New Hampshire getting pretty close to these guys as well as they ballot it out. Onto the drone cam as we come down through the S's. Well, I don't think these guys are going to change position here for another lap or two, Jarrett. I would say that Gomez should probably sit back here for the time being and try to just hang on to the tail of Valandia and then maybe make a last lap or two dive down into the chicane. That's going to be a great spot to do it. Looks like he had to take a little bit of avoiding action. Sean Valandia got it wrong, I think, at turn 5. And maybe ran a little bit wide or clipped that apex curb. He definitely ran wide in that corner and had to check out of it. Otherwise, he was going to get collected into the wall, I think. So good avoiding tactics by UCLA, but Gomez re-inheriting that final podium.
Yeah, and the top two guys, Sean Campbell, Thomas Toomey, pretty much checked out. Sean Campbell 11 seconds up on Thomas Toomey. Thomas Toomey almost 4 seconds. You can see him right there heading into turn 10A. Right in front of this group. And tell you who's got the best seat in the house. It's that 081 machine right behind. That's Ryan Whitlock. Just looking on, and he's having a good time just turning laps and watching a serious battle unfold right in front of him.
Yeah, and this is a great way to learn racecraft as well. Whitlock's a lap down at the moment. He's got nothing to gain by being right on top of these guys. So if you can watch and see how they battle each other, where they choose to make their moves happen, where they go for those deep braking maneuvers, then that's going to be great information to carry on to those later races. But back to Parker Eaton and Cohen Evans, NC State on IUPUI action here. Pair of Porsches going at it through turn 3. This battle has been pretty consistent throughout the night, Jarrett. We've seen them as close as 2 seconds, but really no further than about a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds off each other's bumpers. Love watching this. I said the Porsche was kind of the car of choice for this track, and we haven't seen too many Porsches get it wrong. We've seen the 2 McLarens of the alumni get it wrong. We've seen a couple Lamborghinis get it wrong, and no real Porsche incidents so far throughout the night, apart from guys getting tagged by other cars, but I'm not going to put that down for their fault. But Cohen Evans, you said it early on, he's just so consistent, cool, calm, and collected. I see Cody Fadenhauer in the chat said something about looking silent but deadly, harkening back to my my graceful comment on Cohen Evans' abilities a little bit earlier in the season, but I stand true to the man. He just knows what to do out there. He knows where to defend. He's very consistent, and he doesn't put a foot wrong throughout it. You see him parking it right there on the apex as we write on board with Parker Eaton and NC State. He knows where he can make Parker check up. He knows where he can push that Porsche to its absolute limits. He just does an ultimate job with that car throughout the race. And I bet he's probably got some of the best tire wear that's out there at the moment. I've been watching his hands for a couple of laps, and he's just really smooth with the steering. Doesn't make any fast movements, doesn't take too much curb where he doesn't have to, but knows when to plant the throttle, doesn't get too deep into the ABS. These are all things that we like to see in a great endurance racer. And while this race is only an hour long, that tire wear is a huge factor. So riding on board with Parker Eaton, let's take a look at what his hands do here as we get into turn 6 and turn 7. And Parker Eaton, a little bit more aggressive driver. Not too many overcorrections going on there. A lot of steering angle there at the apex, picking up a good amount of understeer rather. A little bit of understeer there at turn 7. But you see him open that steering really quick on the exit of 7. Got a good amount of rotation from that car. Great for exits, bad for tire wear, but he does not care at the moment. All he's got in front right now, Jarrett, is Cohen Evans' bumper.
Yeah, and here we go. You got to really focus on your braking points. He's going to head to the inside. They'll be side by side heading into turn number 10 all the way up. Gives the space. The 17 maybe going to try and get a good run off, but you're going to see it right there. Just park it on the apex. Force the 17 to check up. But they might be side by side heading toward the front stretch. Trouble right there. Touches the grass. Able to save it. What a save by Parker Eaton as he's able to survive what was a very scary moment right there.
Yeah, we talked about fast hands here. That would have been some real fast hands for Parker Eaton to save that one. But gonna hand that position back to Cohen. This is what that consistent strategy does for you, man. It keeps it clean, keeps it on track, and doesn't make those kinds of mistakes. And Parker Eaton, that being said, has cleaned it up a lot from when he first entered this league. I think I remember watching him at Long Beach. He had tons of pace in the 911 RSR. He was racing at that race, but not a lot of consistency, unfortunately. He's managed to get that figured out a great deal. So now we're watching the battle for the final podium position, for second place in the alumni battle at the moment. Ted Burns on Nick Daly, Wisconsin in UTA action. Jarrett, we haven't seen this since I was racing down there with these guys, but Wisconsin's going to look hard for those lines that he can get around this Lamborghini with. Wisconsin's going to hustle that McLaren all he can. Looks like he picked up a little bit of understeer through those S's. Might be trying to calm it down, not pick up too much oversteer like we saw him get through turn 5 a few laps ago. But UTA, it's going to have his mirrors full of a white McLaren, I think, for the remaining 10 minutes of this race, Jarrett.
Yeah, and I tell you what, who else is battling for these remaining 10 minutes is these 3 cars further on back in the pack. Scott Radliff, Andrew Williams, and Justin Roberts, a pair of Clemson cars with a Pitt State driver mixed in, and Scott Radliff, and Scott backed out of that and able to survive another day. We'll see if Ratliff can come back, sneak into that top 20. He's currently sitting 20th, so maybe try to get 19th, back away from Andrew Williams. Back up towards the front, Parker Eaton trying to close down on Cohen Evans once again. Good battle going on. We see the speed Parker's able to carry through the S's, and I think that's been a spot where we've seen guys gain or lose time really all night long. And it's an important part of the track. You see the long straightaway following it, sets up 6 and 7. The S is so key to a good lap here at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, those are key to a great lap, and this corner that we just went through are also key. I know that I was comparing the time differential between Thomas Toomey and I down through turn 7 and all the way down the chicane, and I was losing almost 3/10 to that guy through here. And so I was asking him how much wing he was running. He was running about 2 degrees less than what I was. So that made a big difference. Parker Eaton looking a little glance to the inside, just letting Cohen know that he's still with him there, and he wants to make this move happen. So you'll see a few different strategies from guys that are falling between cars behind. And so you'll see some guys that just like to sit on that bumper and not make any moves, kind of make you wonder if you're going to make for that move and then make one final effort down on a late braking maneuver. Parker Eaton going for the alternate strategy, kind of the Michael Schumacher maneuvers, if you will, where he's going to stick his nose in there and let you know that he's right there and force you into a mistake if he can. But I don't know if I'd be doing that to Cohen Evans, Jarrett. Cohen Evans, I mean, I don't think we've said enough on this broadcast just how clean a racer he is. So, not the greatest of drivers to go up against in a battle, I would say. He's gonna try to hang on that position for all he's worth, but he's gonna do it as cleanly as he can. We're a little bit wide there on the exit of turn 5, but that's what I would call probably the best racing line you can, just taking every inch of track possible. A lot of camber here on the inside of turn 6, then into turn 7. Let's see if he gets that great exit, but Parker Eaton's been pretty good on exits there. You see him taking a bit tighter line there at the apex of turn 7. That might help him get a little bit extra rotation there and get into the throttle just a tiny bit earlier. I think I bet Parker Eaton's running less traction control than the IUPUI machine as well, based on the amount of rotation he was able to get out of that corner just a couple laps ago, right up underneath that rear wing of IUPUI, but not quite close enough to get that move done under brakes. Just about 5 minutes left to go, Jarrett. Guys are going to have to start thinking, where can I make that move stick? Is there going to be an opportunity in the chicane? Can I make it happen into turn 1? Can I squeeze him out through the S's? But Parker Eaton again looking that inside. Nothing doing there. Cohen Evans still locking that position down.
So we'll hang on this battle for the moment, but trouble back behind. Nick Daly and Ted Burns getting into it. So we'll show you what happened there momentarily. As going through the S's, Cohen Evans with Parker Eaton on his backside. Looks like things are going to get sorted out for the time being. Good run off by both drivers, and they will stay put at that 0.4 of a second gap. Let's take a quick peek at what happened between Burns and Daly. Burns in that white Wisconsin machine, Daly in the UTA machine. This is in turns 6 and 7.
Ooh, I wonder if Ted got in the rear of UTA. He was on the grass in the braking zone, so that's not going to do him any favors on the brakes here. And so he may have just tagged the rear bumper of UTA there. Let's take a look and see. He definitely did. Wisconsin just getting it wrong there, carrying too much speed through turn 6. I'm sure he knows that one. He's probably already apologized to Nick Daly, I'm sure. I mean, Ted Burns is a guy that will admit to his mistakes when he needs to, and that one was unfortunately all on Ted in that situation. So unfortunate for UTA, and it looks like he may have given that position back to him already based on the timing tower if he didn't actually come down the pits or something else, because now Ted Burns is back down to 5th in the Alumni, 14th on track. Meanwhile, oh no, Parker Eaton off the track in turn 1. This is going to grant a huge advantage to Cohen Evans with 4 minutes to go. Just carrying too much speed into turn 1. We'll see it here. Meets up with the apex, but rides that exit curb, and that is not where you want to be. Able to keep it straight at least through turn 3, but yeah, not what we want to see from Parker Eaton, man. That aggressive driving style not doing him too many favors there.
And we talked about it. It's a 1 hour long race. While that doesn't sound like a lot, it gets tough in these closing moments. 4 minutes to go now, and Cohen Evans able to survive the attack from Parker Eaton. So we're going to look back at another battle going on. Esteban Munoz holding on. It looks like the back of that machine has seen better days, but Nick Daly has recovered. He's 2nd in the Alumni, 10th overall. He's trying to pass the 9 machine as they head through the S's.
Dude, I thought he was going to make a move there into turn 3. I was hoping he was going to back out of that one, and he wisely did. Not a great overtaking opportunity, especially not from the outside. You don't really want to be side-by-side braking for turn 3, but with him being 4/10 off this bumper of Esteban Munoz, and Munoz is 19 seconds off of Jeremy Rogers, who will take the victory here for the Alumni most likely, unless he makes a pretty massive mistake, I would say. Nick Daly doesn't need to take this position away from Munoz. Munoz and Nick Daly should be pretty happy, I would say, to sit 9th and 10th overall. There's, like I've said so many times before tonight, there's no point differential if they were to swap positions here, because they are an alumni and a student. So not necessary to swap positions, as it were. But UTA looking pretty good in that Lamborghini, I got to say tonight. He's been making really great strides with his driving talent throughout the season, working his way up the field, especially in the alumni category, and has found a lot of speed as he's continued to practice more and more and more. So love to see that. So Thomas Toomey, 15 seconds off of Sean Campbell. Even bigger gap than what we saw at Hockenheim and Red Bull Ring. Just incredible from the Neon Esports driver from Randolph College. That you just got to applaud that, right, Jarrett? Like, I'm just sitting back here in awe thinking, how would I even be able to come close to anything like that? Sean Campbell just incredible here tonight. Been incredible every race so far, taking 3 wins to his name and setting up a pretty likely scenario for a 4th win here.
Yeah, and I mean, the battles we've watched the past couple laps have really overshadowed the absolute dominance of Sean Campbell. You mentioned a 15-second gap. He's weaving through traffic like it's nothing, even with the undercut, being the 2nd driver down pit lane out of the top 10, really. Sean Campbell has had a absolute beauty of a race, and right in front of him, the 081 gonna try and make it scary for him in these closing moments. Ted Burns slides off the track, but the 30 of Sean Campbell able to survive.
Yeah, tough one for Ted Burns. They're getting it wrong at the for the second time tonight at that same corner. So actually, I'm sorry. This is Jeremy Rogers in the 112. We're watching go through turn one. Actually, I hope I didn't just jinx Jeremy into a mistake, but it's only a half spin. He'll be able to recover from that and probably hang on to that lead in the Alumni. No dangerous rejoin for him either. So only dropping that gap back to Esteban Munoz by about 9 seconds or so. Now it's down to under 10 seconds between them, and Nick Daly still in second. Probably not quite a chance there as Sean Campbell takes the white flag. Last lap here in the CIL at Road Atlanta, and Sean Campbell looking strong still. 15-second gap back to Thomas Toomey. Toomey's got a 1.2-second gap back to Sean Campbell, and then 1.6 seconds back to Sean Valandia. So I'd be hard-pressed to say that any changes are going to be made to those top 5 positions at least. They're really the closest battle on track we've got right now, Jarrett, is Nick Daly and Esteban Munoz. But as we just mentioned, those are not for position. Those will be the same points regardless of where they finish in either of those two positions. But, man, I was hoping for a little bit more fighting here at the end between these top cars, but still a lot of battles. We saw Parker Eaton and Cohen Evans, and then Sean Valandi and Christian Gomez throughout this race really push each other. These groups of Porsches just having an absolute blast battling each other, and I've loved watching every single second of it as the ticker ticks past an hour mark here on the lap. And Sean Campbell coming down the chicane, just a few corners left to negotiate before he takes his 4th win of the season and continues to dominate, coming down through the hill, 80 feet left down this hill and through turn 12, takes his 4th win of the season to extend his championship lead and hopes. And man, he has all but run away with this championship here, Jarrett. Thomas Toomey's going to cross the line here next. 2nd place for the Virginia machine. A great drive for that Virginia machine for sure. FIU taking home a podium as well. Sean Valandia coming 4th. And then Cohen Evans, a man who, again, finished in the top 5, Jared. I can't believe that, I don't know how easy it is to believe that Cohen Evans can continue to do that week in, week out. Park Eaton coming home 6th for NC State, and then Alexander Clank crossing it to come 7th.
Jeremy Rogers on your screen here, surviving that half spin. It looks like he's going to be able to take home the alumni victory, 8th overall, but wins in the alumni category here tonight for Texas A&M. So Texas A&M winning on the gridiron on Saturday and now on the track here on Tuesday night.
Yeah, no, so that's going to help him close up in the points battle to Avery Walker as well. I think Jeremy's already used his drop week, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So the points might look a little bit skewed towards Avery still after this one, but I think this presents a strong case for an A&M alumni championship if he can continue this streak of great finishes there in that McLaren. Despite those couple of instances, we see Sean Campbell off there in the grass, I think on the outside of turn 7, and probably just having a little bit of fun out there in the turf and doing a few donuts in that Lamborghini. Great for donuts. All of these cars got locking rear differentials. All you really need to have a good time in a car is a locking rear differential, and cars just up in front doing about the same. So once again, Sean Campbell, your winner here tonight for Randolph College, and guys pushing each other down here on the back stretch. I wonder if Penn College is out of gas there. Sorry, UCLA might be out of gas there in front. They're helping him get across into the pit lane here to finish this one out. Love to see the camaraderie there between these guys. And yeah, Jarrett, what a race here tonight. Road Atlanta did not disappoint.
No, not at all. And you mentioned it's a tough track. It's a fun track, and it provided so much good racing all night long. We saw guys spend 2, 3, 4 laps in a single battle. And how many times do we get that here in the CIL in these GT3 cars? It is so much fun to watch day in and day out, and it continues to impress. So your top 10 finishers here tonight, as they ran in this race. Sean Campbell coming away victorious for Randolph Community College. Thomas Toomey coming away second. Christian Gomez from FIU comes away third. Sean Valendia fourth. Cohen Evans, fifth from IUPUI, the silent assassin. I think we're going to have to call him for the rest of the year because
That's definitely better than what I came up with. I'll like that one. Yeah.
just quietly finishing top 5, top 4, and maybe, just maybe, that podium's coming for the IUPUI team. Parker Eaton from NC State comes away 6th. Alexander Klenk from WPI in 7th. Jeremy Rogers from Texas A&M. You see that red dash next to the number 8. That's that first alumni. He comes away 8th overall. First in the alumni, Esteban Munoz from FIU in 9th. And Nathaniel Wiley from Southern New Hampshire with a top 10 here tonight, battling back just a little bit.
Great to see from Southern New Hampshire there. And I, again, apologize for calling him Sam Houston State so many times tonight here. But Nick Daly taking home 2nd place for the alumni, 11th overall for UT Arlington. Derek Ekmanis is going to come home 12th for San Diego State, 3rd, the final podium position there for the alumni. Rahul Beleneni just falls short of that final podium position there in 13th. Thomas Crump in 14th for Clemson, your top Clemson finisher. And then Ted Burns, number of instances tonight, not used to seeing that from a Wisconsin man, is going to finish 15th. Avery Walker took home the victory for the alumni last week. This week's finishing 16th for Virginia alumni. Justin Roberts in 17th for Clemson University. Ryan Whitlock for Alabama at Huntsville in 18th. And then Carl Lemke, another alumni car, is going to finish 19th for St. Louis University. And then Evan Puckett for Ball State and the Porsche is going to finish up 20th.
So 21st is Andrew Williams from Clemson University. 22nd, Scott Ratliff from Pittsburgh State. Austin DeLong comes away 23rd from the Penn College of Technology. Hagan Johnson from Clemson in 24th. Nicholas Patnella from Robert Morris. Tough night for him, finishing 25th. Kyle Bonin, after that early incident, comes away 26th. And rounding out your field, Andrew Burrell, finishing 27th, also from Clemson University. So joining us up in the booth now is going to be Christian Gomez from the Panther Esports team from Florida International University. And Christian, it looked like a wild time at Road Atlanta. Walk us through those first couple laps, especially with the tires as cold as they were, needing to warm up, and the hot track. How did that play out at the start of the race?
Treacherous. We couldn't really go full power for like a few laps because we had to get the temperature to the tires. And once we got temp in them, it was just off to the races. That was wicked. Thank goodness, the temperature got lowered from earlier in the week. I think the temperature of the race settings are really good, and we put on a good show. It was definitely entertaining for me. Not sure if you guys saw on camera, but I was wrestling this thing all night long. So once again, sweating, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, great job out there coming home P3 for the FIU team. Talk us about this battle with Sean Valandia throughout the night. We saw that gold nose of the other Porsche in your mirrors for quite a while here tonight. And he was trying to make some moves, but then maybe made a mistake there at turn 5 on those last couple of laps. And so you re-inherited that top position. Talk to us a little bit about that battle.
It was more than a mirror. He actually bit me in the back on the back stretch going into like the final little chicane there. It was a good battle. I wish it didn't happen because I was catching Thomas there at the end, and I felt that robbed me a little bit of time I could have used to hopefully get P2. Because I mean, Sean's gonna win this. I mean, next week he's gonna win, and he's gonna. Yeah, it's over. It's just a battle for P2. Let's be honest. So I really could have used maybe the 5 minutes I spent there battling Sean to catch Thomas. But I mean, that's what you have to do. It was a good battle. Unfortunately, there was just a little bit of contact. Not sure if that hurt his car. Hopefully it didn't. And it's just, I don't know, the tires just burning out there. But yeah, it was fun. Definitely had to fight for this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was a ton of fun to watch from up here in the booth. But talk to us a little bit about how traffic transpired throughout the race with only 12 turns and you can't really make your way past in the S's. How was the lap traffic here tonight?
They cut Thomas more breaks than me. I'll tell you that much. It was hard. I would say for the most part, picking my way through there. wish people had a little bit more self-awareness. I saw the 22 got a penalty there for blocking Thomas, and just I don't, just it's unfortunate, and luckily that didn't necessarily ruin Thomas's race either. Look, he got out of that scot-free with no damage on the front of his car, and yeah, it was just it's a tight racetrack. It's very deceiving. You look at it on the map, you look at the stats on it, and you think, oh, it's probably like wide as like an F1 track. But when you get on it, oh man, those S's, oh brother, that was a ride today.
Yeah, I think in anything bigger than a Miata, this track becomes a pretty daunting endeavor to undertake. But either way, well done. We had a great time watching you up here from the booth. So, any final shout outs you want to give out here before we send you on your way?
Thank you again for Panther Research for the opportunity to represent Florida National University. I'd like to thank the boys. Sadly, Louis couldn't be here tonight. He had midterms to attend to, so he'll be back hopefully the next 2 weeks at the next round. Huge shout out to Esteban, overall P9. Finally, we got 2 cars in the top 10. We've actually been having a little streak where we've been getting them top 10 in class, but finally we got 2 of them. It was last week and this week. We've got both 2 cars in the top 10, one on the podium, one in the top 10. So team's doing a lot of progress. I think that's honestly that's more important for me, that making sure everybody else is doing everything they can. He's been putting a lot of hard work, got load cell pedals, and the results are finally starting to show up here, because I always knew he had the potential to be competitive and to get good results. It's just the equipment wasn't under him to do it. So yeah, just wanted to shout him out really quick. Yeah, just on to next week. Where is it? Auto Club, and hopefully I don't get in my own damn way in qualifying.
Yeah, Auto Club in Fontana, I think, is where we headed on the roadside. But yeah, absolutely fantastic to see drivers improving. Glad to see the team effort as well from the FITU team. Y'all have been making amazing strides, and it's been a pleasure to watch up here. But Christian Gomez, congratulations to both you and the FIU team for a 3rd place finish here tonight at Road Atlanta, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, thank you guys.
So Christian Gomez on your screen. Thumbs up for the camera and thumbs up for a great night here for the FIU team. You heard it right there. Focusing on those consistent finishes, not just for Christian Gomez, who's, I think, proven himself as the FIU #1 driver, but the guys behind him, the guys who are going to be able to support him, especially on the oval side. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But being able to have those teammates backing you up, especially when we think about the team points as well, and those college points that you'll see on the social media over the course of time. So next into our booth is your race winner, Sean Campbell, and I don't think it was ever a question here tonight for you, Sean, so I feel like we didn't do due diligence of just how good you were tonight wheeling the car around Road Atlanta. Is this a track that really suits your driving style, or are you just that good?
I feel like this is a track that I like driving a lot. I've done the most laps for it, probably, other than maybe Le Mans, just for Petite Le Mans and making sets for the cars and whatnot.
Gotcha. So speaking of sets for the cars, I think I saw a comment in the Twitch chat talking about your setups being a little bit on the dangerous side. So I'm going to take that to mean you like a particularly loose car, I'm going to assume.
Yeah, a little bit. I like it to be loose on turn-in so that you can get the front end rotated sooner, so you can get on throttle earlier. But I've been trying to fix that, because that is a problem I have, where I'll make setups that I can drive, but then everybody else is like, hey, this is too dangerous, because I like it a little bit more dangerous. So I'm trying to improve my setup work. I definitely think I got better from Red Bull Ring, where every setup was dangerous, including the one I was driving.
I feel your pain there, man. But talk to us a little bit about this pit stop. You pitted on a much earlier lap than just about everybody else. I think it was before even the halfway mark of the race, or maybe just after. But what was the decision making there?
Yeah, about the pit stop, yeah. I was kind of worried because of the Petite Le Mans testing about the rear left tire, which is scary because now the tire wear is, I guess, they say they improved it, and I think they might have done, but I'm not very good with my rear tires. And I got into the pit stop, and my plan was to pit about halfway through, maybe a little later, to see what it would be like. So maybe I could give myself an estimate of what my rear tire would be. And I was at 70%.
Whoa.
So I turned the traction control up, and I finished the race, I think, just at 50%. So it was fine, but I was kind of worried about it.
Well, it seemed like you didn't have to worry about it that much, winning with a healthy margin. I believe it was 15 seconds there at the end, which is or 16 and a half seconds, which might be your biggest win here. Might be the biggest win in CIL history, actually. So we might have to name this the Neon Esports League before too long. But Sean Campbell, another win. Who do you want to thank for this one?
I guess once again, I'll thank Michael and Max for getting me into this league. I'll thank Eric for creating Neon Racing. I'll thank Flying Lap Media and Freedom USA.
All right. Well, always great talking to you, Sean. I'm sure we're going to talk to you again soon. Congrats on your 4th win here in the CIL.
Thanks.
Thanks. That's what we're going to get from the guy. Oh, what an incredible driver.
Oh,
and
man.
it's a good thing he's good on the track.
Yeah, no kidding. But you don't get points for interviews, Jarrett. You get points for those finishes out there on track. And with 4 wins, I mean, this is 2014 Mercedes level dominance out there, man. It's incredible to watch.
Yeah, and we are getting word. You hear it in the chat that car is going to be broken down during post-race inspection. We'll see if there's any shenanigans going on there. But now we turn it over to the guy who was chasing him all night long. And it's Thomas Toomey from the University of Virginia. And Thomas, walk us through. We talked to Christian about the first couple laps, but I want to hear him from your perspective. Those first couple laps on the tires, on the hot track, in a track that's really kind of tight for these cars. How are those first couple laps for you?
The first lap was pretty easy. I was able to break away from third place behind me. So I was kind of just cruising, trying to get the tires up to temperature. We were testing in a lot warmer conditions over the last couple of days. So I thought it was a lot easier to maintain control when the tire wasn't in the optimal window. So from there, just kind of got into a good range, got into a good rhythm. And yeah, it was a smooth race for the most part.
Yeah, a smooth race indeed. And talk to me a little bit about the start. I know you and I had talked and said, like, if you can get your car in front of Sean at the front of this race at the start exactly, you might have a chance here to kind of hold him up a little bit. But it looked like he kind of caught the rest of the field right there on the exit at 12 on the first lap. Did that kind of surprise you when he took off like that? Did you ever think that you might be able to present a challenge to him?
I was really close in the draft at one point. I made a really small mistake, lost about 2 or 3 tenths, and then he kind of pulled away like another 2 or 3 tenths in the chicane coming up over the last corner, and couldn't really catch up to him after that. Started to have to worry about tire management.
Yeah, so you mentioned it right there, tire management. How tough was it from beginning to end of the race for the tires? We talked to Sean. He said his left rear was at about 50% by the end, and that was getting tough on him. Did you have a similar experience?
So my left rear was about 74%. So I think I had a lot more tire left than I was actually using. So I could have pushed a little bit more at the end. All the testing I had done around lap 40, the tire started getting really bad, and it's really easy to lose it going into turn 1 if you just carry a little too much speed, and the random will just step out on you. And I was in a good position, and so I wasn't really. He was like 8 or 9 seconds ahead of me at that point, and so I was just trying to save in case Christian caught up to me and I needed to defend.
Yeah, well, either way, well done here tonight, taking home another podium position, a P2 here for the Virginia team. So any other shout outs you want to give out before we send you on your way?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the Virginia Motorsports team and the sponsors, InnoVetted Labs, and you guys for putting on a great broadcast.
Absolutely. Happy to do it and happy to watch you hustle that McLaren around Road Atlanta anytime. But until next time, great job out there tonight, Thomas, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
So it's Thomas Toomey, your second place finisher, and kind of interesting to hear that he had that much tire left in that machine, John.
Yeah, I mean, every race is a learning experience. And like he said, they were testing in a lot hotter conditions leading up to this race. And so he may have expected that tire wear to be a little bit worse than it actually was. But, hindsight's going to be 2020 with any race that you do. So he'll carry that knowledge on to the next one.
Yeah, so we'll take one more look through your finishing order out on screen here tonight, and Sean Campbell 15.2 seconds up on second place, and that is just absurd here tonight. But as we start thinking about final thoughts from here at Road Atlanta, I think we were concerned with that first lap, that new tire wear. All the guys had put in plenty of practice, but you still just don't know. There's still that unknown once that green flag waves, and I think we had no trouble tonight, which was fantastic to see here. John?
Yeah, I think the slightly cooler track from the practices definitely helped with that one. And that was almost on purpose, if anything, but definitely glad to see that. But guys, we're still talking about the tire warm up. I know. I mean, we just heard from Thomas Toomey. He was really focusing on those first few laps with not making any big mistakes and trying to get those tires into that optimal working range so he could hustle them throughout the race. You know, it's very similar in iRacing to real life where if you're really aggressive with the tire on those first few laps, it won't last you as long as if you have a real progressive build into that tire heat. So glad to see drivers learning about that, and glad to see them that they're putting that in practice as well, and adapting the setup strategy to match the track as well. So yeah, that's a big takeaway for me. I loved watching those battles between Sean Valandi and Christian Gomez. That gold nose on the UCLA machine looking really good in the rearview mirror, but I know Valandi didn't want to stay there. He wanted to get that move done, but not quite able to get it done at the end of the night. Christian Gomez taking away that third spot from him. UCLA, still a great finishing position for him. Had a great qualifying run as well. Let me take a look and see where exactly he qualified that car. I think he qualified in fourth. Or sorry, no, he qualified in eighth, I stand corrected. So that's actually a pretty good improvement for him over the course of the night to move up 4 positions and onto the bumper of that FIU, that very fast FIU Porsche. And then the other Porsches in the field as well, Cohen Evans and Parker Eaton having great battles as well. Parker Eaton just getting it wide there on the exit of turn 1, I think on those last 2 laps. I think Parker knew that time was running out and he had to make something happen, but those Porsches can be tricky there on the entry to turn 1, Jared, and I think that just caught out Parker in that case.
Yeah, and it'll be very interesting to see what guys choose at our next road race, which is going to be at Watkins Glen in 2 weeks' time. So no driver's bound to that car every single week. So guys will switch pretty regularly. We saw Sean Campbell in the Ford just 2 weeks ago, and he was in the Lamborghini tonight. We saw Thomas Toomey switch to the McLaren and stick with the McLaren. And it'll be interesting to see if guys maybe change that up a little bit. Watkins Glen, a couple long straightaways, and it's a really fun track, really kind of get into a flow, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see if guys stick with the car they chose tonight and maybe tune it accordingly, or if maybe we see a manufacturer switch before next week. John?
Yeah, you know, I'm looking forward to Watkins Glen. It's a distinctly different track than what we just experienced here tonight. What Watkins Glen is pretty smooth and it's pretty wide as well, and there's plenty of runoff, especially on the exit of turn 1 there, and most of the other corners as well. So it's a little bit safer of a track for drivers that have a bit more aggressive driving styles to drive at. So I think it's going to produce some pretty good battles. I think it's going to enable guys to really fine tune the setup to their liking rather than the track's liking more so, though it still needs a good amount of top speed. There's some pretty fast corners on that track as well. And it's running the full boot course as well. So a little bit extra track length added to Watkins Glen. But before that, Jared, I think we're headed off to Fontana next week out at Auto Club on the oval course to see probably, I'm going to guess, Santiago Perez and Austin Farr, the UNC Charlotte and the Tennessee machines battle it out there on the oval side.
Definitely. And that battle, I believe, is at a 6-point differential, which, as you may know, that's a position here in the CIL. So that's going to be a good one. And if you want to watch that action, tune in 1 week's time, same place at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We will start the last chance qualifier. That's where every driver outside of the top 26 qualifying times will take to the track and race for those last 10 spots into that feature race. So if you want to check that out in 1 week's time, tune in. And if you want more road racing action, we just talked about it, Watkins Glen in 2 weeks' time. And I think that's my personally favorite track. So I'm excited to call that one.
I think you're a little bit biased on that, aren't you, Jarrett, being a NASCAR fan?
Oh, definitely. But we will not be running the NASCAR circuit. We get the boot action. So it'll be a good time there at Watkins Glen. But once again, Sean Campbell running away with it, and that's been the story all season long. And we'll see if it continues to be the story at Watkins Glen, or if someone can figure out a little bit of pace. You talked about Thomas Toomey spending tons of time at the practice, just laying down laps here at Road Atlanta, and Sean Campbell said, well, I ran more and figured it out for the Petit Le Mans and figured it out here tonight. So we'll be sure to see how that turns out in 2 weeks' time. So for one last time, for myself, John up in the booth joining us, and everyone that makes this production go around, including our race stewards as well. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. We hope to see you again soon. Good night, everybody.